Listen carefully, because this is happening to you right now. The most dangerous manipulation isn't loud. It doesn't threaten you. It doesn't force you. It nudges you, quietly, until you believe every choice was yours. You are not weak. You are not stupid. You are human. And humans are predictable when emotions take over. Every day, people tug at invisible strings you didn't even know existed. They trigger guilt. They provoke reactions. They steer outcomes, not with power, but with psychology. And here's the truth most people miss. The moment you react emotionally, the moment you care too much, control slips away from you. This audiobook will show you exactly how manipulation works, why emotional reactions are the doorway to control, and how calm, quiet discipline can make you untouchable, even in situations designed to trap you. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Once you understand it, the rules change, and you will never be controlled the same way again. And in the next few minutes, you'll discover the one mistake almost everyone makes, and how avoiding it gives you the upper hand every time. If you react emotionally, you are already losing. Listen closely, because this chapter is the foundation of everything that follows. Manipulation does not begin when someone speaks. It begins when you react. The moment emotion overrides awareness, control leaves your hands, not because you are weak, but because emotional reactions are predictable, and whatever is predictable can be used. Let's make this clear and repeat it until it settles in your nervous system. Reaction is permission. Calm is control. When someone angers you and you snap back, you didn't defend yourself. You gave them access. When someone uses guilt and you rush to explain, you didn't prove your goodness, you surrendered leverage. When someone provokes you and you react instantly, you didn't win the moment. You lost the position. Manipulators don't need authority. They need emotion. Most people imagine manipulation as something dramatic, lying, threats, shouting, force, but that's not how it works in real life. Real manipulation starts small: a tone, a look, a comment meant to irritate, a question designed to corner you, because manipulators are not interested in truth. They are interested in reaction. Once you react emotionally, they have data. They know what upsets you, what scares you, what makes you seek approval, what makes you defensive. And from that point on, they don't guess. They press buttons. The uncomfortable truth is that most people are not manipulated because others are clever. They are manipulated because they are reactive. Reaction is permission. Calm is control. Think about arguments. Arguments feel like strength. They feel like standing your ground. But most arguments are traps, because arguments are emotional exchanges disguised as logic, and once emotions rise, logic disappears, and the manipulator thrives in that chaos. They don't care if they are right. They care that you are engaged. Raised voice, defensive tone, explaining yourself again and again. Every reaction says the same thing. You matter enough to affect me, and that is all a manipulator needs. The moment you feel the urge to win an argument emotionally, you have already lost strategically. Now let's talk about guilt. Guilt is one of the most effective manipulation tools because it doesn't look like control. It looks like morality. You should do this. After everything I've done for you. I wouldn't ask, but these phrases are not requests. They are emotional hooks, and if your first response is emotional, defending yourself, apologizing excessively, over-explaining, then the manipulation worked, because guilt forces action without clarity. Here is what you must stop doing immediately. Stop reacting to guilt instantly. Stop proving your intentions. Stop confusing pressure with responsibility. Reaction is permission. Calm is control. Passive aggression exists for one reason: to provoke you without taking responsibility. Sarcasm, backhanded compliments, silence meant to be noticed. The goal is not communication. The goal is reaction. And when you react, asking what's wrong, explaining yourself, trying to fix the mood, You step into their frame. Calm people don't chase clarity emotionally. They wait, they observe, they let silence expose intention. Here is the discipline you must build. When emotion rises, pause. Not for drama, not to punish, but to regain control. Do this. Slow your response, lower your voice, reduce your words, delay decisions. This is not weakness. This is emotional authority. The person who reacts last controls the interaction. Say it again until it becomes instinct. Reaction is permission. Calm is control. Here's why manipulators hate calm people. Because calm removes predictability. They can't read you. They can't rush you. They can't push you. Your calm tells them, I am not operating on your emotional timeline, and without emotional access, manipulation collapses. You don't need sharper words. You don't need better arguments. You don't need louder reactions. You need discipline. The discipline to pause. The discipline to feel without reacting. The discipline to stay calm when provoked. Because the moment you control your reaction, you take back control of your life. You have now learned the first and most important rule. If you react emotionally, you are already losing. And now that you understand how reactions give people power over you, it's time to expose the real source of manipulation. Chapter 2. People don't control you. Your triggers do. Chapter 2. People don't control you. Your triggers. Do understand this clearly. No one controls you directly. They control what you react to. Manipulation does not work through force. It works through triggers. A trigger is an emotional shortcut, something that bypasses your logic and activates your behavior automatically. Manipulators don't guess these triggers. They study them. They watch what offends you, what excites you, what makes you defensive, and what makes you desperate for approval. Once they know that, control becomes effortless. This is why the same people keep pushing the same buttons, because the buttons keep working. Whoever controls your emotions controls your behavior. Look at how this plays out in real life. In families, pressure often hides behind tradition and obligation. A certain tone, a certain phrase, after all we've done for you. And suddenly you feel guilty for choosing yourself. That guilt is the trigger. The moment it activates, your behavior changes. You explain. You comply. You delay your own priorities. Not because it's right, but because the trigger was pulled. In workplaces, the trigger is often fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being labeled difficult, fear of losing status. A manipulative colleague doesn't need authority. They just imply consequences. Your trigger reacts before your mind does. In romantic situations, insecurity becomes the most powerful lever. Silence, withdrawal, comparison. These are not accidents. They are tests. If you chase, explain, or overgive, the trigger has been confirmed and control increases. Whoever controls your emotions controls your behavior. Here is the hard truth you must accept if you want to transform. Your triggers are your responsibility, not who presses them, not who discovered them. You cannot control people, but you can control access to your emotional system. Most people try to fix manipulation by fixing others, arguing more clearly, setting louder boundaries, demanding respect. That fails because the real problem is internal. As long as the trigger exists, someone will eventually find it. So what must you stop doing? Stop reacting immediately when you feel offended. Stop chasing approval when you feel uncertain. Stop explaining yourself when you feel misunderstood. These behaviors do not protect you. They expose you. What must you do instead is discipline your awareness. When an emotion spikes, treat it as information, not instruction. Pause and ask yourself, why did this affect me? What fear is being touched? What validation am I seeking right now? This pause breaks the automatic loop. The manipulator expects speed, quick emotion, quick compliance. When you slow down, you remove their advantage. When you name the trigger internally, it loses intensity. Awareness weakens control. This is how you reclaim authority without confrontation, without drama, without explanation. Whoever controls your emotions controls your behavior, and awareness takes that control back. As you practice this, something important happens. People begin to lose influence over you without you saying a word. The same tactics stop working. The same pressure feels lighter. Not because they changed, but because you did. Your emotional system becomes less accessible. Your behavior becomes intentional instead of reactive. This is the core of mental toughness. Not toughness against people, but toughness against your own impulses. You now understand a deeper layer of manipulation. It lives inside emotional triggers, not external power. And once you see that, you realize the next step is not reacting less, but giving less access altogether. You've identified the triggers. Now it's time to remove the fuel they run on. Chapter 3. Guilt is the most common weapon. Chapter 3. Guilt is the most common weapon. Guilt is the most polite form of control, and that is exactly why it works so well. It does not shout. It does not threaten. It whispers. It disguises itself as care, concern, love, sacrifice, and morality. Guilt says, "I just want what's best for you," while quietly steering your behavior away from your own needs. Understand this clearly. Guilt is not accidental. It is a strategy. And once you recognize it, you begin to see how often it has guided your decisions without your consent. Say this slowly and let it sink in. Guilt is not responsibility. Guilt is a leash. Guilt manipulation works by making you feel like a bad person for wanting autonomy. It connects your self-worth to compliance. Emotional blackmail sounds like sacrifice. After everything I've done for you. But the message underneath is control. Obligation language sounds reasonable. You should do this. It's your duty. But the goal is obedience, not fairness. Victim playing is even more dangerous because it flips reality. The manipulator becomes the wounded one, and you become the one who must fix, rescue, or surrender. The moment you feel responsible for someone else's emotions, the leash tightens. Guilt is not responsibility. Guilt is a leash. Notice how guilt bypasses logic. You don't evaluate the situation clearly. You don't ask whether the request is fair, healthy, or aligned with your values. You react emotionally. You rush to explain. You apologize for things that are not wrong. You give time, energy, or agreement just to make the discomfort stop. That relief you feel after complying is temporary, but the pattern it creates is permanent. Every time guilt works, it trains the other person to use it again. This is why guilt-based manipulation escalates over time. It is rewarded. Here is what you must stop doing if you want to break this cycle. Stop equating guilt with duty. Stop assuming that feeling bad means you did something bad. Stop taking responsibility for emotions that are not yours to carry. Guilt is an emotion, not a moral compass. Feeling guilty does not automatically mean you are wrong. It often means a boundary is being tested. When you feel guilt rise, that is your signal to slow down, not to comply. Guilt is not responsibility. Guilt is a leash. What must you do instead is develop emotional separation. You must learn to sit with guilt without acting on it. This is uncomfortable at first, because your nervous system is used to resolving guilt through submission. But real strength is staying still under pressure. Ask yourself, am I being asked to act out of values or out of fear of disappointing someone? If the answer is fear, pause. Delay your response. Give yourself space to choose consciously. Calm breaks the guilt cycle. Silence weakens the leash. As you practice this, something changes. People who rely on guilt will become frustrated. Their usual phrases will lose power. Their emotional displays will feel exaggerated instead of convincing. This is not cruelty. This is clarity. You are not abandoning compassion. You are removing manipulation. You can care without complying. You can love without surrendering control. This is emotional maturity. You now see one of the most common weapons used to control behavior. Guilt only works when you confuse emotion with obligation. Once you separate the two, the leash falls away. And when guilt loses power, manipulators are forced to change tactics or disappear. You've learned how guilt keeps you compliant. Now it's time to understand another habit that quietly hands control away every day. Chapter 4. Why explaining yourself makes you weaker. Listen carefully because this chapter will change the way you communicate forever. Over-explaining is one of the most subtle ways we hand control to manipulators. It feels natural to clarify, justify, or defend yourself, especially when confronted with accusations, criticism, or pressure. But here's the truth. Every word you add beyond necessity signals insecurity, doubt, and vulnerability. It is an invitation. It is a lever for others to twist. Clarity is power. Silence is dominance. Manipulators are experts at turning your explanations against you. The more you speak, the more material they have to distort, to argue with, to manipulate. Think about conversations where you end up justifying your choices repeatedly. By the end, you are exhausted, frustrated, and emotionally drained, but the manipulator is calm, collected, and satisfied. Your words have fueled their control. This is not theory. It happens every day in family arguments, workplace conflicts, and romantic interactions. Clarity is power. Silence is dominance. Over-explaining also hides a deeper problem, the desire to be understood, accepted, or approved. This craving gives manipulators leverage because they know you will speak to secure validation. They know you will react, clarify, and prove your point. They don't need to pressure you overtly. Your words do the work for them. Every defense, every justification, every repeated explanation strengthens the manipulator's hold. Here is what you must stop doing immediately. Stop over-explaining when your decisions, boundaries, or intentions are questioned. Stop justifying your emotions or priorities to anyone who hasn't earned access to your trust. Stop assuming that silence equals weakness. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is dominance. It communicates control, self-respect, and authority without a single reactive word. Clarity is power. Silence is dominance. What you must do instead is master the art of measured communication. Speak only when necessary, and when you do, speak with authority and intention. Avoid tangents, defensiveness, or excessive reasoning. Observe reactions without responding impulsively. Your calm, concise words will carry more weight than 100 frantic explanations. Let your silence be your shield, and your clarity be your sword. This is not passive. This is strategic, transformative power over your interactions and emotional landscape. As you apply this discipline, something profound happens. People stop testing you. They stop pushing for explanations because your calm, controlled presence communicates a boundary they cannot override. You begin to reclaim mental space, conserve emotional energy, and dictate the terms of engagement. The manipulator's scripts fail because you no longer provide the dialogue they need to control you. You now understand that every unnecessary explanation is a gift of control you are giving away. Once you stop giving it, you become stronger, untouchable, and strategically dominant in any interaction. You have learned the secret to using silence as a tool of power, the foundation of emotional independence. Now that you have mastered this, the next step is understanding the source of attention, the fuel manipulators run on, and how to starve it. Chapter 5. The manipulator needs your attention to survive. Chapter 5. The manipulator needs your attention to survive. Listen carefully. Not everyone who enters your life wants your happiness. Some people crave something else, your attention. And attention, as simple as it seems, is the lifeblood of manipulation. Without it, their power evaporates. Every time you give it away, you feed a system designed to control, provoke, and distract you. And every time you withhold it, you reclaim a piece of your freedom. Manipulators are not interested in truth, kindness, or fairness. They are interested in influence, and influence requires energy, and energy comes from the people they target. And the most immediate source of this energy is you. They use toxic conversations, drama cycles, and emotional baiting to provoke reactions, keeping you hooked. The pattern is simple. Attention validates influence. Give it, and the cycle continues. Withdraw it, and the system collapses. You can recognize their tactics by noticing persistent engagement requests, exaggerated reactions to your boundaries, repetition of past hurts, and a constant need to be center stage. Awareness is your first act of power. Detachment and withdrawal of attention are your tools. Imagine their manipulations as noise. Loud, annoying, but powerless unless you respond. Pause, breathe, and decide whether this deserves your energy. Silence, non-response, and selective engagement teach the manipulator that their usual methods no longer work. Redirect your focus to what truly matters: your goals, your peace, your growth. Attention given to your own life multiplies your power. Attention given to manipulators diminishes it. Remember this mantra: starve what seeks control. Say it daily. Let it anchor your responses, guide your boundaries, and remind you that your freedom depends on your focus. Practical examples make this clear. A gossiping colleague who seeks drama loses interest when you disengage. A friend who constantly shares crises learns to take responsibility when you set boundaries. Online trolls and provokers starve when ignored. True freedom comes when attention is no longer given unconsciously. Not everyone deserves your focus. Your reactions are a form of energy transfer. Silence and selective attention are more powerful than words. When consistently applied, manipulators lose leverage. Their drama no longer disrupts your peace, and their attempts to provoke you feel impotent. You have learned the art of withholding attention, the lifeblood of manipulative control. You understand that withdrawing focus is not cruelty, but self-preservation. Your energy is sacred, and giving it to manipulators only diminishes your life. You have mastered the battlefield of emotional energy. Chapter 6. Nice people are easier to control than strong people. Listen closely, because being nice is not always a strength. It can be your greatest vulnerability. Excessive agreeableness, the desire to be liked, or the fear of confrontation often comes at the cost of boundaries. Manipulators exploit this instinct. They know that kind, accommodating people will avoid conflict, comply with requests, and overextend themselves to maintain approval. Every compromise made out of fear or people-pleasing strengthens their control. Kindness without boundaries is self-betrayal. Think about the patterns in your life. When you say yes to things you don't want to do, when you suppress your needs to avoid friction, or when you adjust your truth to keep someone comfortable, you are giving away authority. People-pleasing is not generosity, it is compliance disguised as virtue. Fear of conflict keeps you in patterns that benefit others at your expense. Avoiding discomfort means staying trapped in manipulative cycles instead of addressing them directly. Manipulators do not need to be aggressive. Your over-agreement is enough. Kindness without boundaries is self-betrayal. Here is what you must stop doing immediately. Stop agreeing out of fear. Stop accommodating at the cost of your values or energy. Stop avoiding confrontation when it is necessary to protect yourself. These behaviors do not create harmony. They create leverage for those who wish to influence you. Being nice in the eyes of others does not matter. Being strong in your boundaries does. Your mental toughness and calm discipline are far more valuable than approval from anyone who seeks to manipulate you. What you must do instead is integrate kindness with boundaries. You can be compassionate without sacrificing authority. You can be empathetic without losing control. You can listen without being a doormat. When you respond intentionally rather than automatically, manipulators find their influence shrinking. Silence, firmness, and clarity, combined with kindness, create a shield that protects your energy while maintaining integrity. Kindness without boundaries is self-betrayal. As you practice this, you will notice manipulators begin testing you in new ways. They may escalate demands, provoke more, or attempt emotional pressure, but your strengthened boundaries and calm response diminish their effectiveness. You are no longer reactive, and they cannot rely on your compliance. Every time you uphold a boundary, you reinforce your authority, independence, and emotional strength. You now understand that agreeableness without limits invites manipulation, and that kindness without boundaries is a gift to those who seek control. The next lesson will reveal how silence, strategic and intentional, can disarm manipulators completely. Chapter 7. Silence is not weakness. It is strategy. Listen carefully, because most people misunderstand silence. They think it is passive, weak, or a sign of submission. In reality, silence is one of the most powerful tools in your arsenal. Manipulators rely on reactions. They depend on emotional fuel. Every word you speak, every defensive gesture, every impulsive reply gives them control. When you stop providing that fuel, you disrupt their script. You remove the lever they use to influence you. When you don't react, they panic. Silence forces manipulators to reveal themselves. Without your immediate response, their tactics become visible. Passive-aggressive comments, guilt-tripping, veiled threats, or dramatic displays lose their effect when met with calm observation. They are forced to escalate or expose intent because their usual pathways, your reactions, are blocked. In essence, silence is a diagnostic tool. It shows you the truth of the manipulator's strategy without you having to participate. When you don't react, they panic. Here is what you must stop doing immediately. Stop filling every pause with justification. Stop responding to emotional bait. Stop explaining, defending, or rationalizing the behavior of those who seek control. Silence is not avoidance. It is presence. It signals that your calm is unshakable and that your boundaries are unmovable. Every moment of unnecessary speech gives manipulators leverage. Every deliberate pause returns power to you. What you must do instead is practice strategic silence. Pause before replying. Observe before engaging. Let your emotional calm communicate what words cannot. When confronted, respond only when it is necessary, concise, and intentional. Do not chase explanations, validation, or approval. Your restraint creates uncertainty for the manipulator. They cannot predict, provoke, or control you. Silence transforms you from a reactive participant into a commanding observer. When you don't react, they panic. As you adopt this approach, notice how interactions change. People who once pushed your buttons begin testing less, escalating less, and hesitating before attempting influence. Your emotional neutrality becomes the ultimate barrier to manipulation. Calm observation, paired with intentional engagement, makes you untouchable. Your silence communicates power, not weakness. You now understand that silence is not inaction. It is a strategic act of dominance. Every unreacted provocation strengthens your control over your environment and over yourself. The next lesson will show how emotional detachment completes this framework, creating immunity to manipulation. Chapter 8. Emotional detachment is the ultimate defense. Listen carefully, because this chapter will reveal the strongest shield you can have against manipulation. Emotional detachment is not coldness, indifference, or avoidance. It is the ability to observe without immediate participation, to witness without surrendering control. When you detach emotionally, you stop reacting on autopilot. You stop giving manipulators the fuel they need to influence you. You create distance between stimulus and response, and in that space lies your power. Detachment creates clarity. Clarity creates freedom. Detachment allows observation instead of participation. When someone provokes you, threatens you, or plays on your guilt, your first instinct is usually reaction. You want to answer, justify, explain, or correct. But detachment changes that pattern. You pause, you observe, you notice what is happening without letting it dictate your behavior. You analyze the intention behind the words, the emotion behind the act, and the real goal of the manipulator. This is where control shifts from them to you. Detachment creates clarity. Clarity creates freedom. Consider practical examples. Responding later is a form of detachment. Instead of reacting immediately, you give yourself time to evaluate, to separate emotion from action. Slowing decisions is another tool. By delaying responses, you prevent impulsive compliance and maintain authority over your choices. Internal neutrality is equally vital. It is the mental practice of observing emotional triggers without judgment, without panic, and without surrender. These practices together form a defensive shield that is invisible but impenetrable. Here is what you must stop doing to master detachment. Stop acting on every emotional impulse. Stop trying to resolve every conflict immediately. Stop letting guilt, anger, or fear dictate your behavior. These are the levers manipulators use to bend you to their will. By stepping back mentally, you remove access to those levers. Instead of fighting, reacting, or appeasing, you hold still, neutral, and aware. Detachment creates clarity. Clarity creates freedom. What you must do instead is train yourself in conscious observation. Pause before responding. Ask, am I reacting to manipulation or am I responding intentionally? Recognize triggers without feeding them. Respond from strategy, not emotion. Allow clarity to guide your actions rather than impulsivity. Over time, this practice rewires your interactions. Manipulators find their usual tactics ineffective. Your emotional independence becomes apparent, and their influence fades naturally. As you practice detachment, you will notice profound changes. Conversations that once caused anxiety will no longer provoke urgency. Attempts to manipulate will feel strained and transparent. Your calm, observant stance communicates strength without confrontation. You are no longer an easy target. Emotional detachment transforms vulnerability into clarity, and clarity into freedom, the ultimate defense against control. You have now mastered emotional detachment, the most powerful shield against manipulation. The final step is to combine this discipline with consistency, creating a state where your reactions, attention, and emotions are fully under your control. Chapter 8. Emotional detachment is the ultimate defense. Listen carefully, because this chapter will reveal the strongest shield you can have against manipulation. Emotional detachment is not coldness, indifference, or avoidance. It is the ability to observe without immediate participation, to witness without surrendering control. When you detach emotionally, you stop reacting on autopilot. You stop giving manipulators the fuel they need to influence you. You create distance between stimulus and response, and in that space lies your power. Detachment creates clarity. Clarity creates freedom. Detachment allows observation instead of participation. When someone provokes you, threatens you, or plays on your guilt, your first instinct is usually reaction. You want to answer, justify, explain, or correct. But detachment changes that pattern. You pause, you observe, you notice what is happening without letting it dictate your behavior. You analyze the intention behind the words, the emotion behind the act, and the real goal of the manipulator. This is where control shifts from them to you. Detachment creates clarity. Clarity creates freedom. Consider practical examples. Responding later is a form of detachment. Instead of reacting immediately, you give yourself time to evaluate, to separate emotion from action. Slowing decisions is another tool. By delaying responses, you prevent impulsive compliance and maintain authority over your choices. Internal neutrality is equally vital. It is the mental practice of observing emotional triggers without judgment, without panic, and without surrender. These practices together form a defensive shield that is invisible but impenetrable. Here is what you must stop doing to master detachment. Stop acting on every emotional impulse. Stop trying to resolve every conflict immediately. Stop letting guilt, anger, or fear dictate your behavior. These are the levers manipulators use to bend you to their will. By stepping back mentally, you remove access to those levers. Instead of fighting, reacting, or appeasing, you hold still, neutral, and aware. Detachment creates clarity. Clarity creates freedom. What you must do instead is train yourself in conscious observation. Pause before responding. Ask, am I reacting to manipulation or am I responding intentionally? Recognize triggers without feeding them. Respond from strategy, not emotion. Allow clarity to guide your actions rather than impulsivity. Over time, this practice rewires your interactions. Manipulators find their usual tactics ineffective, your emotional independence becomes apparent, and their influence fades naturally. As you practice detachment, you will notice profound changes. Conversations that once caused anxiety will no longer provoke urgency. Attempts to manipulate will feel strained and transparent. Your calm, observant stance communicates strength without confrontation. You are no longer an easy target. Emotional detachment transforms vulnerability into clarity, and clarity into freedom, the ultimate defense against control. You have now mastered emotional detachment, the most powerful shield against manipulation. The final step is to combine this discipline with consistency, creating a state where your reactions, attention, and emotions are fully under your control. Chapter 10. Become calm, unreadable, and unmovable. Listen carefully, because this chapter will show you the final step to becoming untouchable by manipulation. When people can't read you, they can't control you. Predictability is a manipulator's greatest advantage. Every emotional reaction, every visible frustration, every impulsive response signals your inner state and gives them leverage. When you remove predictability and maintain emotional neutrality, you make yourself impervious to influence. Calm people are dangerous to manipulators. Becoming unreadable is not about hiding your personality, it's about controlling your internal state so that others cannot exploit it. Strength comes from consistency, calm, and the refusal to provide emotional fuel. You no longer need to prove anything, justify yourself, or react to provocation. Your presence alone communicates authority. Manipulators become uncertain because their usual tactics, guilt, pressure, drama, provocation, no longer produce predictable results. They are forced to operate without control, and uncertainty makes them desperate. Calm people are dangerous to manipulators. Here is what you must stop doing immediately. Stop signaling what you feel the moment you feel it. Stop over-explaining or overreacting. Stop letting others' words dictate your emotional state. Stop giving clues about your boundaries or intentions through visible tension or defensiveness. These behaviors make you readable, and readability is vulnerability. Instead, cultivate internal neutrality. Respond when necessary, but always from calm awareness, not emotion. Calm people are dangerous to manipulators. What you must do instead is practice being unmovable. Anchor yourself in emotional independence. Develop the habit of pausing before responding, observing without judgment, and keeping your intentions private. Make your reactions deliberate, not automatic. Over time, this builds a presence that is stable, strong, and unpredictable to manipulators. They cannot provoke you because there is nothing to provoke. They cannot control you because they cannot read you. Calm people are dangerous to manipulators. As you integrate this discipline into your life, you will notice a transformation. Interactions that once caused stress, frustration, or anxiety will no longer have power over you. People who attempted manipulation will begin to adjust, escalate, or withdraw because their usual strategies fail. Your emotional neutrality and unreadability create a protective shield that ensures your mental and emotional autonomy. Strength is silent, presence is power, and calmness is dominance. You have now completed the framework of emotional mastery. Controlling reactions, identifying triggers, detaching from guilt, using silence strategically. preserving attention, setting boundaries, practicing detachment, cultivating discipline, and becoming unreadable. Each chapter built a layer of defense, and now you stand as someone who cannot be easily manipulated, provoked, or controlled.